All right, welcome everybody, and thank you for attending the Social Mobility Commission webinar on Masterclass on outreach. We are here today, and hopefully you're in the right spot to build a program of inclusion and diversity from the onset. So we are here today and joined by a fantastic group of partners, and many different organizations have contributed into the thinking of this session today, including the Pledge, Social Mobility Pledge, Upreach, the Careers and Enterprise Company, EPP, Santander, and you're going to hear from others as we go along. Before we get started, hopefully at this point of our pandemic living, everyone is quite familiar with this type of workshop etiquette. We would ask that everyone please remain on mute. If you have your camera off, please turn it off, and please don't be too terribly offended if somebody on our side turns it off for you or mutes you, just giving everyone the best opportunity to get to hear the webinar today. Please use the chat box to ask questions or pose comments. And in fact, if you're so willing, I invite everyone to use the chat box just to introduce yourself, just say a hi, let us know where you're from, and get used to using that chat box. We will have some poll questions, technology allowed. And finally, just a note to everybody that this webinar is being recorded, the first section. When we move into breakout groups, that will not be the case. But for this first section, we will be recording the webinar to put up onto our website, Social Mobility Works. So today, we're going to do a few things. We're going to start with a brief introduction on what we mean by outreach. We will then hear from Santander, who is going to give us an absolutely excellent case study, and we're looking forward to hearing from them about their own journey in outreach. We are then going to send folks into smaller workshop sessions, breakout rooms, where you will have both a Social Mobility Commission partner and an industry partner. And our hope is in that workshop, you'll be able to actually dig deep and start applying some of this thinking and work to your own business context, using the help of some of these experts in the room. So it's really your session to shape how you want, and you will get as much out of it as you put into it. So we hope that you engage with enthusiasm in that workshop. And then we will end the session by all coming back together into this main room to cross-pollinate ideas, to hear what each other has done. And we can go ahead and I will go ahead and signal that about a week or so after this session, we will then do some work to collate everyone's thinking, and we will send you out an action pack which collates case studies, thoughts from today's workshop, and next steps, and a checklist for you to take back to your organization. So we want to first start by saying, what is social mobility? Well, technically, we at the Commission define it as the link between a person's occupational income and the occupation or income of their parents. But in other words, in simpler words, it's about ensuring your background doesn't determine your future. We at the Social Mobility Commission are what we call an arm's length body. So we are an independent agency of the government with a remit to hold government to account on social mobility policy. We also, though, advocate for social mobility. And in part of our work, we're passionate about saying, working with employers to improve socioeconomic diversity and inclusion on the ground. So this toolkit is a part of our broader work with employers, and we encourage you to go to socialmobilityworks.org to see more of our resources for employers, which we'll signal and highlight throughout the session. But essentially what we try to do is recognize that where the family that you're born to does not have to determine your future outcomes. And talent is based everywhere across this great country of ours, but the opportunity to nurture that talent sometimes is not as equally distributed. So we also know that you're here because you recognize that diverse teams are successful teams. A diverse workforce has a range of benefits that we've seen throughout research and academic evidence. It can improve your branding and improve that external visibility of how your customers perceive your business. It can improve your well-being, your employees' well-being, their loyalty, and their investment in your company. It can future-proof your business. There's a fair bit of research showing that diverse teams give a competitive advantage because they bring diversity of thinking, and builds a pipeline of talent. And of course, it can also, diverse teams can improve business operations. You can improve your productivity, your staff retention. It can be cost effective and an efficient use of staff. So there are a number of business results and business reasons why diverse teams are successful teams. And you're here today because we think you already recognize some of these benefits and you want to really realize them and unlock them in a greater way. We should also signal that even though we at the Commission are specifically focused on socio-economic diversity and inclusion, we are also passionate about the intersections of different types of characteristics. So no individual experiences a single characteristic in isolation. They don't experience being a woman separately to being from a working class background. And one of the really powerful things about socioeconomic diversity is it does cut across a lot of different characteristics. And it's important when we're thinking about diverse teams and diversity within a business and within a workforce that we recognize those intersections. So what is outreach? What are we here to talk about today? Well, today we're talking about the engagement of individuals from a lower socioeconomic background to shape the future success of your business. It's how you connect, it's how you raise awareness about your business, and it's about breaking out of the same old recruitment molds and driving change in your pipeline. We find that often businesses can get a bit stuck in a rut, can say, okay, well, this is what we do time and again. We go to the same universities, we do the same job fairs, in part because it's easy and you've got other pressures and priorities on your mind. We're here today, though, to say, if we really want to get some of those business benefits and really unlock the benefits that diversity brings us, we need to start at the beginning of the pipeline and break out of those same old molds. It's about supporting the community and individuals. It's about raising aspirations so that individuals can be the best they can be. And it's showing why they should come and work for you to drive your success. What do you offer that somebody should be really passionate about signing on to? And we know that outreach works, and it not only works for the business, but it can have transformational aspects for individuals. We hear here from Lucy, who was arranged in a talk by Career Ready to do a degree apprenticeship with a local company. She says, I thought it might be a barrier because of the study time, but they loved it. My degree coursework required evidence of applied learning, so it was valuable to my employer because I put everything straight into practice at work. So Lucy was able to drive her own career and learning goals forward while also benefiting that business. So we want to reconsider the beginnings here. So take a bit of time to understand the pathways to unlocking that diverse talent and setting high-level goals. So let's start with future talent. So think about walking in their shoes. What motivates that future talent? What channels should you use? Where do you find them? How do you break that mold? How do you think about, okay, well, we go to the same universities or career fairs, but actually, where is the talent that we want to reach? And where should we think about going to them? Let's put ourselves in their shoes and think about what they're doing. Moving down for your organization, a really key thing is understanding what do you want to achieve? Who is in your social mobility squad, as we've talked about it, but who is coming to you to do this work? Who in the company is trying to deliver this? And importantly, if you're a large enough organization here, who in your senior leadership team, in your executive team, who has the buy-in here? How are you driving this not only operationally, if you're, let's say, in an HR function, but how are you driving this with senior leaders who need to have buy-in to this work? Moving over on community and third partners, who works in your areas? What do they do? What are their challenges? And what are the challenges in your area? It's important to recognize here that you don't have to figure out everything alone. You don't have to. There are a number of talented organizations with established pipelines, with who have done the hard work to figure out what works and what doesn't, there to support you. And you can go to socialmobilityworks.org for an organizational directory that will help you connect to partners in your local area. And equally, if you know of partners in your area who are not on that directory, please do invite them to add themselves in. And ultimately, these three spheres all come together to bring awareness, to improve opportunities, to improve your business, and what we at the Commission are hoping is to also improve social mobility. So outreach, again, we want to look at what it did for Liam here. So Liam, and this is, Liam talks about the Stephen Lawrence Scholarship Scheme, again, understanding that intersectional aspect. The Stephen Lawrence Scholarship Scheme was set up to address the underrepresentation of Black men from less socially mobile backgrounds in large commercial firms, law firms. And he'd be pleased to see more programs aimed at other young people at risk of falling through the gaps. Liam's life here was really improved by that outreach, by that opportunity to use a scheme to get access into a career path that for many might be a little bit difficult or different. Additionally, when we think about this, what we want to signal, we've said, think about breaking those recruitment molds. I want to ask, did you know that 2 times the number of disadvantaged students are in FE colleges than in school sixth forms? So if we're trying to think about how do we expand our opportunities, how do we expand our career paths to get more people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, those who have had less opportunities to nurture their talent, well, let's look at where do we go? Walk in their shoes. And a good place to start would be saying, yes, schools is excellent, and we should absolutely be working with schools, particularly schools, disadvantaged areas, schools in social mobility cold spots. But equally, it's really important to have a mind to further education colleges, because they are a place where a lot of disadvantaged students go. And therefore, that can make your work a little bit easier when we're thinking about diversifying the business. We go to those different places where we can find the talent that we're looking for. So there are a number of building blocks to your outreach program that you should start from. Of course, you need to design it. We then have delivery and, importantly, evaluation. Santander hopefully is going to pick up on this point about how important evaluation and is to recognizing the success or not of your program. We then have organizations. Within your own organization, you should have that end goal in mind. You should set your strategic plan and figure out what key performance indicators you're using to assess your progress against those goals. And then finally, use your communication and messaging tools to achieve that end. These are some of the tools that you can start to bring to your program and to your thinking. The next building block we add to the session is individuals. Who are they and where are they? So who are you trying to target? Where, for example, in further education colleges, where are you going to target those individuals? How are you targeting them? What types of interventions? Is it schools outreach? Is it speeches? Is it work experience? Is it community fairs? What interventions are you doing? And again, what are your outcomes? What are you hoping to see in that outreach program? With charities that you're working with and other third parties, what do they do already? What are the partnerships and the metrics that you can build, again, to drive your success forward? And the final building block we have here is your overarching community. What challenges does your community or the communities you want to work with especially facing? One of our commissioners, Stephen Cooper, who's one of our interim co-chairs, talks a fair bit about a visit he made with the Commission to Oldham in the Northwest recently, or pre-COVID, not recently. And he talks about how in Oldham he was really struck by specific community challenges. It's a community with no anchor institution, so no single large employer, and it's a community that has a fair bit of housing issues in terms of turnover and churn, so a lot of short tenancy leasing. So he, as a business leader, as the CEO of Seahor and Company and former chief exec of Barclaycard personal business, he, with that business mindset, was thinking about, okay, if I was a business in this community, how would I reach out to communities who often have a fair bit of housing churn, or who don't have this kind of anchor institution? Where do I need to go? How can I use existing channels to drive my outreach and to get to those individuals in the places they go, in the youth centers, in the further education colleges? Because he recognized that individual communities have their own challenges, and you as a business need to reflect that in your strategy. And again, set those targets, figure out how you're evaluating it, because data is key. And having those really good measurement outcomes will help you determine where in these building blocks you need to be thinking about your strategy, and where you need to be refining it to really drive that diversity. So I'm going to stop talking now and turn my video off, and I would invite our colleagues at Santander to please pick up the microphone and put yourselves on video and share with us your brilliant success story.
Hi, Lindsay. Same here. Thank you. Thanks for that introduction. Hi, everyone. If I just kind of introduce everyone from the team today. So there's myself on. I'll be covering off kind of our journey. And I've always linked to the things that have just been covered there. I think that the purpose is there just to explain the journey that we're on. I'd say we haven't mastered all the different aspects to this right now, but I suppose it's just to give you a bit of experience of the journey we've been on for the last kind of 4 or 5 years, where we've got to, and some of the learns that we've had along the way. Work really closely with everyone from the team here. We've got Paula on from our inclusion and diversity team. We've got Amrita from our CSR team, and Elaine and Louisa. A massive support they've been within our kind of social mobility network, and they really drive a lot that we do through our social mobility network and support everything we do there. Paul, is it okay for me just to move into the journey? Should I do that first?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So on the next slide, Lindsay, really just to give you a bit of a visual of the journey that we've been on. I got involved in the role I'm doing now. So I lead on the emerging talent across Santander. So this encompasses everything from work experience to apprenticeships to graduate programs and internships and so on. And started on this journey back in 2015. And back then, just to give you a bit of context, back then, as an organisation, we predominantly had the main pipeline of coming into the organisation from the younger generations was predominantly via the graduate offering. So we have an internship scheme and a graduate scheme, and we've been offering those schemes for a number of years. And we had some limited work experience, and probably beyond that, some sort of limited school engagement as well. And as an organisation, we were going through a lot of change anyway, probably similar to lots of you in the larger organisations. Probably the focus was changing more to communities and people, and how do we support those broader. And as an organisation, you know, we're here to help people and businesses prosper. So this kind of was an ideal opportunity to just have a look at what is our kind of journey, what's our pipeline going forward. And so probably similar to what Lindsay referenced, actually, we probably were a bit guilty of bringing people in from similar universities, probably a narrow group of universities that we're potentially bringing people in from, and we wanted to broaden that out. And I think also we hadn't really done much in the apprenticeship space at all either. So the focus really was on us sort of shifting away from that model and just look at what are we trying to achieve for the organisation in the future. How do we bring in a more kind of diverse talent? How do we look at engaging in a different way in our communities? And we try things out. Some things have worked better than others as we've gone along the way. And so the first of all was to focus on the organisation's purpose. So it was perfect timing for us as the purpose had changed to be a broader agenda where we brought in a compass to the organisation. So it was about supporting people and communities, as well as kind of stakeholders and shareholders along the way. So this fitted perfectly in terms of changing the landscape a bit, changing the tone and the direction. One of the early pieces recognised was that we really needed that ExCo sponsorship. And I think for probably 6 months prior to that, we were trying to bring in some changes or initiatives, and they weren't really probably getting the engagement that we wanted. And I think we recognised was, particularly with the shift to apprentices, we needed to do that shift. by getting that exco sponsorship. So a big thing for me is that you need somebody at the top table of the organisation to be a sponsor. We were really lucky. We kind of pitched this to our executive committee. We managed to get 2 sponsors, which was brilliant. One of them was the chief finance officer, which really helped. So I definitely think that really gave it a momentum and a focus and a sponsorship that really helped. So that helped us drive in the apprenticeship programme. And our direction of the apprenticeship programme was about looking to use specifically apprenticeships to bring new people into the organisation. So this was just to give it context, this is kind of pre-levy. I suppose this was the beginnings of the shifts to standards that they were starting to be built. So we were getting involved in the standards and then being built at that time. But this is kind of the kind of pre-levy world, and this was in the world where it moved to the 1/3, 2/3 scheme. So we started to do apprenticeships, looked at doing those in various different places. We started off with 2 or 3 schemes. One of our first schemes was the digital technology degree, and then we also did a couple of level 3 schemes. During our journey, I think what we recognised was that it wasn't as easy as we thought it might have been to get apprentices into the organisation. I suppose maybe a bit naively, it's relatively easy to attract graduates in. I think the challenge was how to try and attract a more diverse range of people into the graduate programme. But I think that same challenge kind of hit us with the apprenticeship scheme as well. So around that time, we'd already had a couple of programmes that the CSR team were managing, which was MoneyWise and FutureWise, and these were going into schools. And MoneyWise was about helping young people understand about money. You know, we're a bank, that's an easy thing for us to do, so let's go in and sort of talk about MoneyWise. And we thought, actually, we need to add to that, to add a different dimension to this, to sort of talk about more career more holistically. And around the same time, the great thing was we kind of kickstarted the diversity and inclusion team, had been more formally built. And it's fair to say some of these initiatives and some things I'm talking about today were already happening at parts of the bank anyway. So we got a lot of colleagues in the organisation that were doing things on a local level anyway. And a lot of this was about how do we bring just a bit more structure and frame around it. And mainly because I think Lindsay references is data is really key. And one of the challenges I had was because there was so many great things going on. One of the hard bits was just getting sight of that and understanding the benefits that we're offering across the organisation, and then just trying to give it a bit more consistency of message. So we then launched WorkWise. WorkWise is a programme where we go into schools. We built various sessions around helping 14 to 18-year-olds think about how do they get into the world of work. So we did things about how to sort of think about your skills and how to apply your skills to jobs, talk about what type of jobs are out there in the marketplace. Not specific to Santander, this was generic. Also talked a lot about how to sort of apply for jobs. One of the sessions I think that worked particularly well is we talked a lot about how to deal with failure. Because I think there was a perception amongst that age group that when you apply for a job, you just get a job and you go into that job, and it's like how to take the positive from sometimes you're getting that initial rejection. So we rolled out WorkWise. And WorkWise really started to help us gain traction across the organisation to go out and do more in the community. It helped us also promote the apprenticeship programme, so we touched on that as part of the WorkWise initiative. So we really started to drive a shift that was more structured, and the apprenticeship programme started to grow. And the levy came in, and that started to help accelerate the number of programmes we did as well. One of the aspects to this was what we also recognised is that we didn't have anything really to support a whole range of particularly younger people who had been unemployed for a period of time or who'd never got into work, that kind of neat population that just weren't in employment, they weren't in training. So we were really keen to do something in that space, and hence we sort of kickstarted the traineeship scheme, which is a government initiative. We'd not done it previously, and we looked to sort of target that in a couple of cold spot areas where we had big contact centre environments. And that's been a big learning curve for us, been a great success in terms of the number of people we've now had through that. And a big positive for us is that traineeship scheme, we use that as a feeder into doing an apprenticeship scheme. And that apprenticeship scheme has been a real big success, and we've got quite a number of people now through that apprenticeship scheme off the back of the traineeship scheme. And we worked with BPP on that, so they've been supporting our traineeship scheme since we started that over 2 years ago now, nearly 3 years ago now. And we continue that every year. So that traineeship scheme is a model we've been running every year now in that part of the business. Even with all of those changes, we were still struggling with the data, and we were still struggling slightly to get the diversity. And I think some of the learnings for us, maybe we're a bit late to learn this, but about how to shift the data collation at the point of recruitment, how during all this journey we were trying to refine our recruitment processes at the same time, making them more and more a better experience for the person who's applying, making it easier for somebody to apply, making it slicker, and also trying to collect more data at that point as well. Although obviously some people are reluctant to share some of the data, but we're finding better ways to position why we're asking those questions. And then we really sort of drove out more and more about the local schools and the local champions model. And there was tons of stuff going on that we recognised was going on above and beyond what we'd already pushed out centrally from WorkWise and what we're pushing out through our work experience programme. I think we, at that stage as well, we also looked to review our work experience programme as well. So I think that was a little bit hit and miss in terms of the length and the structure. And so we've also reviewed our work experience programme. I think within that, we're also currently reviewing our intern programme. I think one of the big challenges that we clearly recognise is that people from different backgrounds might have loads of challenges in terms of coming to do like a work experience scheme or to do a traineeship scheme or to do an internship scheme. So it's really key that you've got to fund these schemes in terms of travel, in terms of lunches. You've got to look at maybe the length of the schemes. So don't offer big, long schemes. Try and do lots more smaller touch points. So do like insight days, do lots of those. I mean, obviously with the change now, offer like virtual online activity instead. But even with that, we still felt our school strategy wasn't still hitting really the mark. So, and I think it's because we tried to do it ourselves. So the big learn was, we're not an expert in this. Let's not try and do it ourselves. Even though we're a large organisation, we've got loads of people who are supporting it. We felt actually there's still a need to have a partner that specialises in the kind of school and college engagement, which we now have. So we've started that partnership with a new partner. And I think it's really helping us now focus in on specific objectives that we're trying to deliver and to build the pipeline going forward. That's been formalised even further with the support through the Social Mobility Network. So over the last kind of year or so, that's really started to make great strides. And what's been fantastic is we're able to now partner with all the volunteers that we have in the Social Mobility Network. They are all partnering and supporting delivery of WorkWise. They're supporting our work experience programmes. And with the shift that we've just done to virtual, we've got people who've been delivering those for us virtually as well. So I think Elaine's delivered one of our virtual ones just in the last week or two. And that's been a way of helping us scale. So getting the scalability was through using the networks, and the networks helped us get the scalability. And in amongst all of this, we've been refining our recruitment to make it a blind process. So we've got to a process now that's far more digital. It's far more transparent in terms of the whole process to the end applicant applying, and it's blind all the way through till the final bit, obviously with the assessment day. But we do a lot of support there with managers around being aware of maybe any personal biases that may or may not be there and helping them with that. And so the final bit is then that kind of data check. It's like making sure that you, within all of these schemes that we're now pulling together, is how do we make sure that we are trying to achieve the aims that we set out to do. And the big shift was about, through the kind of social mobility, actually what we found is it supports many other objectives that we had. So if we look at challenges over maybe gender split, if we look at challenges around maybe ethnicity, finding actually social mobility helps deliver those other things at the same time. So actually for me, the focus on social mobility helps to drive other things that are really important to us as an organisation. So our gender split in terms of apprenticeships and graduates is virtually 50-50. It's not many miles away from 50-50. If I go back to where we were 4 or 5 years ago, it wasn't there at all. It's a much bigger split. In terms of our work experience model now, we offer over about 350 places a year, and that's across the whole of the UK now, where there was historically a work experience model that was predominantly probably more based in the south towards kind of Milton Keynes and London. So we've made to move that out. So through these initiatives, we've definitely changed the direction and changed the impact. And that's definitely had an impact on volumes of applications that we now have for apprenticeship schemes. It's definitely had an impact on the pool of people that we get applying. And within all this, but I haven't touched on as probably the graduates, is that within us, we're applying the same kind of concepts within our graduate model, is trying to find different ways to partner with universities to illustrate that, we're not looking for people with a certain university background. So that's our journey. And so we've still got things to learn. We've still got things that we need to do a little bit better. In terms of, I suppose, the schemes we've got right now. So, Lindsay, if you can move on just the next slide to give us some where we're at, because I think may or may not be useful just to see what is our current offering. So we have a school to work pillar to what we do. Traineeships, I've talked about that. It's a real key piece for us now. We also have the kind of core intern placement model, which feeds into our graduate model. And then we have a whole range of apprenticeship schemes now, 19 schemes across the organisation. So I won't go through all the detail there. You can kind of say it for yourself. But I mean, the work-wise, we've delivered that to more than 19,000 students now since we launched that. We're still looking to deliver to 380 students this year, kind of a work experience placement on our one-day virtual one we're doing now. The traineeships, probably something that probably is less used, I think, across sectors. But we found great success with that. So we've had the trainees, in terms of converting them across to getting an apprenticeship. We've got nearly 100 trainees who've done a level 2 apprenticeship. 26 have now passed into their role. We've got a whole raft of people still on scheme. And the conversion rate from the traineeship scheme into the apprenticeship scheme has been over 70% for us, which has been amazing. And then the apprenticeship scheme itself, most of our apprentices are new to bank. So just under 70% of the apprenticeship schemes that we offer, 70% of our apprentices are nearly new to bank. And we're constantly learning and working with new partners. So we have a great partnership with BPP, who deliver a number of our schemes for us. We also partner with a few other organisations. You can see there, NTUs, it's Nottingham-Trent University, is sponsor of our degree activity. And White Hat's sponsor of our digital stuff as well. And we're finding that those apprenticeships have really resonated across the organisation. And probably a similar challenge some of you might face, and we're facing the same, is where's the balance for kind of a graduate scheme and an apprenticeship scheme? And I think it's driven by what does the business need by when. But certainly apprenticeship schemes in the kind of degree space and the level 5 up to degree space have been really successful for us. And particularly in the tech space, I'd say that they've been really successful. So give an example, we've got over 80 people on our tech DTS scheme right now. I've got our first scheme just finishing at the end of this year, and we've got a 95% retention rate across all the schemes. So we've only lost one person off the original DTS scheme that we started. And they've gone on to get a great role somewhere else, actually. So they didn't drop out. They've actually gone to somebody else, which is a bit of a shame for us. But I think that's part of the cost, that you're going to be developing people, and some people will want to continue on the journey with us, and the vast majority have. But that's not a bad thing that someone's gone on to create a great career for themselves somewhere else as well. So that just gives a kind of snapshot of our initiatives. I think in terms of some of the learns, the last couple of slides, and the next one is probably some of the key bits for me, is probably the one that probably took us a while. We had partnerships, but I think one of the bits that I learned was that you need to invest time in the right partnerships. So it is really important to get the right partners that can help with a national coverage. And I suppose you're all going to be in different positions in terms of your deployment as a company and where you are in the UK, but having really good national partners has been really, really important. In terms of data, we started small because everybody wanted all the data for everything straight away. It's just not possible to do that. So we just tried to build the data set as we've gone. So we have a really good set of data now in terms of every engagement that we do across the organisation. Got to get that sold back into the business, particularly at a senior level, at sponsorship level, that it does take time. It's not something you can fix in a matter of weeks or months. It will take a year or two to get there. And some of the things are around some of the safeguarding challenges around mentoring schools. We've been doing various mentor programs over the years, and it's been a bit of a challenge for us. So it's really working with the partner helps to understand what some of those challenges are in advance. And I think it can be expensive if you try and do it yourself, and you need a lot of resource and a lot of time to do it. So again, coming back to the charity partners, they've already got that infrastructure in place. So really sort of leverage that. I think probably the last bit for me is just on the shift. Is the big lesson as well, is probably the social mobility probably became more and more of an important agenda as we went through this, to help deliver other metrics that we needed to deliver and help people more broadly across the community. So actually for me, social mobility has helped in a whole number of ways beyond probably what initially you maybe think is the social mobility agenda. And then the final piece then, just in terms of connecting that back, on the last slide there, Lindsay, sorry, just one more slide. Probably the last couple of bits, just as summaries, is in terms of linking it back to the organisation, individuals, the charities and the communities. I think starting the organisation, one thing I haven't touched on actually is that we built KPIs into performance reviews around supporting communities. So everybody across the organisation has a KPI about supporting communities. So we just give options around that, and the work-wise and the money-wise, great options to support that. Get a sponsor as soon as possible. Otherwise, it becomes so much harder then to drive these schemes. And we're very lucky that we've got a sociability network sponsor as well at an exco level. So that really, really helps to drive the agenda. And work experience, have it really transparent and have it structured. I think a big learn for me is that we would probably accept work experiences in different guises and different contexts, but we've got to a place now where we have a very structured 3 levels of work experience that builds over time. It's very transparent, so it's an application process. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, you all go through the same application process for the work experience model. It's all managed by our partner, and that's made life far easier and been able just to target different areas and different agendas for us much easier. In terms of individuals, just make sure we're fair. Pay the expenses, pay the national wage. I know sometimes it can be a challenge. Is around kind of internships. There's talk of internships being unpaid. We don't do any of those things. Every single one of our schemes is paid, and I think it's driving to say that the reason why that's important is because the demographics dealing with, they don't have the money, the budget to be able to do these things themselves. So you do need to support them. You do need to pay for all the expenses. And try and just do one essential intervention really well, then build. I think probably the bit for us at the beginning when I picked this up, we were trying to do lots of little bits, but not very well. And it was almost like focus on one at a time and build from there. Get the employee networks. If you haven't got employee networks or social mobility network, definitely get one of those. Our social mobility network massively helps to support local activities, drive that through, deliver for us. So they're really, really helpful, and link back to build the community work into the volunteer days, links back to the KPIs and the performance reviews as well. And the last bit in terms of charities, definitely advocate what Lindsay said. You need to sort of make sure you invest that time to have 1 or 2 charities that really become kind of core partners to help deliver some of the objectives that you've got. That's our journey. So you can see we've still got gaps, but that's the journey we've been through. Really pleased with everything we've done. We've massively shifted in terms of our intake of our employees, far more diverse. It's been recognised quite a bit with kind of sociability ratings that we've got and so on. So really, really pleased with where we've got to, but we have still got stuff to learn. We are not there, but we're going in the right direction.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ian. Thank you so much. And apologies to everyone. My tech was not playing fair today. So thank you, Lindsay, for obviously hosting us at the start. So now, after we've had the insights from Lindsay and Ian's lovely, rich, in-depth case study, we're now going to go into to get some ideas from yourselves. So I'm fingers crossed, at the press of a button, you will then automatically go into your pollination zones, where you can freely share some ideas of where we think we can shift outreach in our own organisation. Please bear in mind this is Chatham House rules, so be open and honest with those discussions, but remember what stays in the room and everything. But I'll let you go, and for the facilitators amongst